Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Miha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. So Norway Chess Championship has ended, Magnus Carlsen won by the way, and lots of nice games were played there, and I found a very interesting game from the 6th round between Wesley and Aryan Tari. So the first game ended up in a draw, so they played another armageddon game, which was a rapid game. Let's see what happened in the game. Wesley had white pieces and he started with c4, e6, knight to c3, d5, d4 and c5, and we have Tara's defense of queen's gambit declined. White plays c pawn captures on d5, e pawn recaptures, and now knight to f3, black plays knight to c6, putting more pressure on this pawn on d4. White plays g3, preparing to develop his light square bishop, and white responds with a knight to f6, bishop goes to g2, and now c pawn captures on d4, knight recaptures, and bishop to c5. So we have double attack on this knight on d4. Well, one way of defending is of course with the e3, but then white pawns on the king side would be all on the dark squares, and therefore black light square bishop would gain a lot of power here on the king side. So in the game, white plays knight goes to b3. Now you can see that bishop on c5 is under attack, and also this pawn on d5 is 3 times attacked, 2 times defended. So if black doesn't want to lose this pawn, he should have played bishop to b4, pinning this knight on c3, who is one of the attackers on the pawn on d5. And after black captures this knight on c3, black can defend the pawn on d5 quite easily. But in the game, black has decided to sacrifice a pawn. Bishop to b6 was played. And now, of course, white immediately grabbed the opportunity. Knight captures on d5. And now black continues with the development. Bishop to e6 was played. And now this knight on d5 is attacked 3 times and only 2 times defended. But well, let's see if white removes this knight. Let's say if knight goes back to c3. Of course, white off the trade of queens, but black would probably play queen to e7, and after, let's say, white castles king side, we have rook to d8, black takes over the d file, and after, of course, queen cannot go to e1 because of a knight to b4, threatening this unpleasant fork on the queen and the rook. And of course, if queen will go to c2, still we would have a knight to b4 attacking the queen. After queen to b1, you can see the harmony is between the black pieces is much greater than the whites, and black is developed and has more than enough compensation for a sacrifice pawn. So in the game, white has decided to defend the knight with the e4, and black responded with bishop to g4, attacking queen on d1. Or maybe one of the options would definitely be bishop to f3, defending the queen, or maybe even queen to c2. But white has decided to remove the queen, but not on c2, but on d2. Now, the problem is that this bishop on c1 is now blocked by the queen and also with the pawn on b2. So maybe this was not the best move from the strategical point of view. Anyway, in the game, black immediately counteracts with knight captures on d5. Now, white has 2 ways of recapturing this knight. Maybe the best option would still be if a queen would capture on d5, because still the e file would be close, and this queen is protected by the pawn. But in the game, white sees the things otherwise, and e pawn captures on d5, attacking knight on 6-6. Yeah, that's true, but black is on the move and plays queen to e7 check. Now, let's see, king cannot go to d1, or maybe a queen cannot go to e2, and also this e3 square is protected, so white king has no other options but to go to f1, and now black gains the initiative and castles queen side. Now, of course, this knight on f6 is still under attack, but if pawn captures, there goes our queen. So in the game, white plays h3, attacking a bishop on g4, and maybe still the best option would simply be bishop to e6, because again, a pawn cannot move and a pawn would be attacked. Black would gain this pawn back, the material would be equal, and black would have a totally solid play. But in the game, black plays bishop to f5. Now, this was not the best move, and here white could take an advantage by playing queen to f4. First of all, attacking this bishop on f5, and after, let's say, black removes the bishop to let's say g6, then white would simply play a bishop to e3. First of all, blocking this e file, and also now rook on a1 gains the control over the first rank. But in the game, believe it or not, white sacrifices the queen by playing d pawn captures on c6. So white captures the knight, and queen here can be captured. And of course black is winning, but if you think that black should just capture this queen on d1, you are wrong. Black should have played b pawn captures on c6, getting rid of this unpleasant pawn on the c file. Now queen is still under attack, and there are many good squares for the queen. Let's say if queen goes to c3, we have rook to d1 check. The only move is queen to e1. After rook to e1 is checkmate. So here in this position, white would have to play king to g1, trying to escape here on h2. Now rook can simply capture on d2 after bishop recapture. Yeah, white has a rook and a knight for a queen, but after queen to e2, targeting this pawn on f2, who is going to be captured, this is simply a winning position for black. But in the game, black has decided to capture queen immediately, so rook captures on d2, and it was maybe a fatal blunder, because now c pawn captures on b7, it's check, and also threatening to promote to queen at correct time. So king has no other option but to go to b8, and only now bishop captures on d2, and now we have this pawn on b7, which is like a bone in a throw for a black. Very unpleasant situation. And here it was necessary for black to play bishop to e4, because now then this bishop would be blocked, and black king could easily capture this pawn on b7, getting away of the additional threat. But in the game, black probably makes a fatal blunder by playing a6, trying to escape his escape square for a7, because black was probably afraid of bishop to f4. Very unpleasant check. Yeah, that's true, but still very bad move for black, and white immediately grabbed the opportunity. Rook goes to e1, attacking the queen. Queen goes to f6, and now king goes to g1. Well, now let's see. You might think that queen can simply grab this pawn on b2. Well, let's see if queen captures. We have this unpleasant bishop to a4, it's check, and here black should have found the correct move, and that was bishop to c7. Of course, bishop would capture and white would still be better. But if, for example, black would play king to a7, then we would simply have b pawn promotes to queen. And now black has no other option but to capture the queen with the rook, and then we will have rook to a7 check. Now king cannot go anywhere, and of course can only defend the check with bishop to, let's say, c7, because if, for example, rook goes to b7, you have rook captures on b7 check, and we have mate in 3 moves. Of course, king goes to a8, but then white simply plays a rook to, let's say, f7 check, and black can only defend the check, but it's going to be checkmate in 3 moves. There's nothing black can do about it. Okay, let's go back to our game. So in the game, black plays bishop to e6, trying to block this e file, so rook cannot invade on the last rank. And now white continues with king to h2. Of course, queen cannot capture on f2, because then we have rook from h4 to f1, and now this queen is trapped. So in the game, black plays king goes to a7, and now white bishop to c3, attacking queen on f6. Now queen can capture on f2, and this is what happened in the game. Queen captures on f2, rook from h goes to f1, attacking the queen, and queen has now an escape square on c2. And white continues with knight to d4, attacking queen on c2. Now black has 2 options, either capture the knight or maybe escape with the queen. There are many good squares for the queen. Let's say if queen goes to a4, we would simply have knight captures on e6, and after, for example, f-pawn recaptures, we have this unpleasant bishop to e5, threatening with a knight to f7. When this pawn would be gone, we would have check and discover attack with the promoted queen, who is protected by the bishop. Very unpleasant and probably lost for black. So in the game, black has decided to capture this knight. So bishop captures on d4, bishop recaptures is check, king has no other options but to go to b8, and now bishop to e5 again check, bishop, king goes back to a7, bishop to d4 check. So white is repeating moves. Of course, it was a rapid game, so white is trying to gain additional time by repeating the moves. King goes back to b8, and only now rook captures on e6, trying to open some lines for his second rook. Of course, f pawn recaptures, and now again we have bishop to e5 check, king goes to a7, bishop to d4 check, king to b8, and now bishop captures pawn on g7, attacking rook on h8. And black has decided to remove the rook to e8, and now again we have a couple of checks. So bishop goes to e5 check, king to a7, bishop to d4 check, king to b8, bishop to e5, and after king to a7 we have rook to f7, and now when this pawn is gone, we have this deadly attack on the king. For example, if black makes a random move, h5, we have simply b pawn promotes to queen, and it's checkmate. So in the game, black has decided to run with his king, so king goes to b6, trying to avoid this mating knight. Still, white promotes his b pawn to queen, and now black has no other option but to capture the queen with rook. And of course, now bishop recaptures rook. So what do we have? We have rook and 2 bishop versus queen, totally winning position for white. Of course, white threatens with rook to b7. Let's say black makes a random move. We have rook to b7 check. If king goes to c6 or c5, we have rook to c7, skewering king and gaining this queen. So after the only move, king to a5, we have bishop to c7 check. After king to a4, we have bishop to c6, and it's going to be mate in 3 moves. Let's say if king goes back to a5, we have simply a bishop to b4 check, king to a4, b3, and now the only move is a queen captures on b3, and bishop to c6 is checkmate. Now there are some any other variations, but in all of them black is lost. And black is more or less lost in this position anyway, but still black tries with a5. White responds with bishop to e5, now a4, and now white plays rook to b7 check, king goes to a7, and now a3 blocking this pawn on a4. Black plays queen to e2, attacking bishop on e5, bishop goes to d4, and now e5 attacking bishop on d4. White plays rook to e7, now pawn cannot capture because it's pinned by the rook. And instead black plays h5, and now white responded with rook to e6, it's check. Now king cannot go to a7 or b7 it's because it's closed, but if king goes to a5 or b5, let's say after king to b5, rook simply captures on d5, forking both king and the queen, gaining decisive material advantage, and realize that all is lost. In this position, Aryan Tari resigned the game. So I hope you like this game, I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.